Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. And I have with me productivity extraordinaire, Leslie Shreve. Leslie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dean. It's great to be here today.
Yeah, we were going to record this like a week ago, and my AI camera, the first AI camera, broke. So we had to reschedule this. But thank you so much for coming on because when we spoke, I was like, if not for everybody else, I want to talk to you. Because do you want to just give kind of a quick intro to what you do and your kind of day-to-day expertise of what you do?
Sure. So I'm a workload management and productivity expert, guru, what have you, consultant, trainer, coach, and I am the founder and CEO of Productive Day. And I am also the creator of a unique proprietary system called Tascology, the science of getting things done. So I work with executives and business owners and motivated professionals to help them increase the time that they have during the day by 1 to 2 hours every day, spend up to 50% less time in their email inbox every day and get to zero, and not only gather, but plan and prioritize and accomplish their tasks faster and easier and with a lot less stress, all without giving up all their personal time to do it.
So that's a hell of a statement there, Leslie, that you can help people save 1 to 2 hours per day. To be fair, my email inbox is horrendous. It's not just the fact that I'm not very good at managing email. I think we're just bombarded with like a ton of email, like even stuff we didn't want, we're getting.
Mm-hmm.
So, before we get into the whole how do you manage email, how do you become, and what was your journey to become like a productivity guru, particularly with like workload management?
Sure. So I was in corporate for 13 years before starting Productive Day in 2003. So we just celebrated 21 years, and it's been a fantastic journey. Back when I was in
That's awesome.
corporate, I never anticipated that I was going to own my own business. So I had no idea that that was coming. But it's been exciting. I really enjoy working with people to help them overcome the chaos that can be a typical workday. It was very different back in the 90s when I was in corporate. And since I left in 2003, it was a whole different time back then.
Mhm.
And
That was like the
now
beginning of email, right?
it
Beginning of early
was.
days of email then.
Yes, and it's so funny because I even remember the day that the IT department, one of the guys from the IT department came to my office to teach me how to use a mouse.
Wow.
And that was probably 1990, I don't know, six, seven, eight. No, actually, it was even before that. It was like 94, 95. It's pretty funny thinking back on that. And in my last corporate job, I still had a Franklin Covey planner. Definitely don't have that anymore. But yeah, so I enjoyed the corporate days. But when I started to feel restless and think, there's more for me to do out there in the world, there's more that I can do to help people, to serve others using some of my innate talents, and then combine that because I'm always efficient, effective, productive, organized, all those wonderful things. But combine that love of corporate that I have, and the professional world, plus my use of Microsoft Outlook at the time, which was kind of the thing. We didn't have all those the systems that we have now back then. And I put it together and started working with people to help them get organized. I thought that was the thing, but it wasn't. I found out very quickly that in the business day, there are a lot of other gaps I was seeing that people needed to bridge. One of them being buried in email. So I'm thinking, great, I can help you get organized. You can find or file any paper you've got in 3 seconds or less. But if you're buried in email, you're in trouble. And if you can't
Yeah.
get enough time in your day, you're also in trouble there too. And if you can't prioritize all the stuff that's on your plate and you're having trouble getting things done, that's going to hold up your progress 100%. So all those bigger gaps started to appear to me in the first 5 years of doing what I do. And very quickly, I realized I was teaching the same thing over and over again. And I thought, I'm helping people in a systematic way. Let's get the
Mm.
system out of my head. And so in 2008, I started getting it all out of my head. And 2 years later, after creating a whole bunch of ebooks, we put it all together for the first PDF that we created in 2010. And I trademarked it, and it's Tascology, the Science of Getting Things Done. We've revised it now 5 times, so it's on its fifth edition. And I really wasn't, a product seller at all during this time. I really do private consulting and team training, but I still wanted to get the asset out of my head.
Mm.
So we have that and we have the videos and everything. But, after all these years, just seeing these same gaps over and over again, it just makes my heart sing that I can help people bridge those gaps and make more meaningful, powerful progress in their workday without working like nights and weekends to do it.
It's really weird though, isn't it? Because we've got all of these tools, like email in one sense has made us more productive. I can remember like 2000, 2001, getting my first proper account with email and all this kind of stuff, and the novelty of getting emails back then.
Mm-hmm.
And email was a utility that's basically allowed us to, not fax. I remember faxes as well, which was the
I
old
do
email.
too. Yes.
So you'd get all of that stuff, but it's like now I must get, I don't know, let's say, I don't know, 30 or 40 important emails, but they're lost in like loads of other things.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you
Hundreds.
think we've not cracked this? Like, to use a phrase, as a species, why have we not cracked managing email?
God, I wish I knew, Dean. I wish I could get out my crystal ball and look deep into that and figure it out because my clients are tearing their hair out. Even after learning Tascology and unsubscribing from everything they could possibly, sometimes even the unsubscribe doesn't work. Not
Mm,
for me, sometimes, not for my clients, sometimes. I'm not sure why it hasn't been cracked any more than I have with the junk mail that shows up at my home.
mm,
Why has that not been cracked either? So yeah, there's I think an attachment to email because everybody loves the proof that it provides. Yes, I had that correspondence. Yes, we made that decision. Yes, there's this communication, and so everybody's using it as a CYA. And they
mm.
want to have themselves covered, to make sure that it's in writing somewhere. People are copying each other way too often, especially in the corporate
Yeah.
world. They're copying everybody under the sun. And so a lot of this is a corporate culture, or it could be a departmental culture in corporate. When it comes to business owners like you and me and all the entrepreneurs out there, we get bombarded, especially when we sign up to follow another expert or guru. And now we're on all these lists, learning from so many different people. You have to, at some point, make a decision. What's the most important to me? What's the most valuable to me, and what's the best use of my time? So, unfortunately, we have to disconnect sometimes from some of the best news, the best reading, the best articles, the best experts and gurus because they simply can't fit. They just can't fit.
I mean, one of the problems I have, and I'm sure other people watching, listening to us will have the same thing, is checking email like at various different times of the day. And even just like I'll finish recording with you and I'll check my email. It becomes like a behavior to just check all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I end up doing things that I should leave alone or reading things that I should leave alone.
Mm-hmm.
What have you found in terms of how you manage that whole email piece? What are some of the kind of things that you've discovered? What are the bad habits that kind of trip us up with email?
I don't think it's bad habits as much, Dean, because it's really not everybody's fault. This whole email load thing, I think a lot of people might frame it that way and say, what are we doing wrong? But
Mm,
it's not you guys. It's not anybody. The problem is that everyone is missing a system to manage it. So it's not email.
mm,
Email's not the problem, even though we are overloaded. Technically, email's not the problem. It's not having a system to manage it. That's the gap. So what needs to happen is, and I think a lot of people don't realize this, is that email management is really task management in
mm,
disguise. It's also information management in disguise. And what's necessary to manage what comes in email is having a single central digital task list to manage not only the tasks and follow-ups just from email, but from everywhere. And so what we do is we pull the tasks away from all the sources of tasks in your workday. Email is just the most annoying. But you've got phone calls, you've got texts, social media, you've got papers and files on your desk as reminders of things to do. There's meetings and hallway conversations. And when you create a to-do list on paper, spiral notebook, legal pad, you name it, that becomes yet another source of
Mm.
tasks. So the ones that are flowing into email, tasks, follow-ups, ideas, reminders, whatever it is, they need a place to go in one central location. Think of it as an inventory of all your tasks. So at that point, not only do you have 100% clarity of what's on your plate, but you can more effectively and efficiently compare and contrast them all and make smart decisions about how to spend your time. At that point, you're planning, you're prioritizing, and it doesn't matter where they came from. What matters is when you're going to take action. What matters is
Mm.
what you're going to do about it. So until you pull it away from the source, it's a nightmare. No matter what the source is, whether it's meeting notes in a spiral notebook or it's that legal pad filled with 20, 30, 40 different to-dos, nothing is best managed while it's still sitting in the inbox. You have to get these things out, and then they can be best managed in that system. So for instance, there's also reference information coming into email. Some things you're going to save in a document place like OneDrive, an e-document library, Dropbox, the hard drive, wherever you're going to put that. Then we have contacts rolling into email. Contacts too often stay embedded in the email and then tucked in an email folder. And now you want to call Bob, but you don't have his number. So now you're running an email search when really you want to be looking at contacts where all that
Mm.
information can be. Those are just a few examples, but tasks should really only have one location where you can reference those tasks and see those tasks on a list that are now grouped by day. So you're doing this much, not this much in a day. And then you can say, okay, this is what I need to do today. This is going to have to wait until another day or next week or next month or whatever it is. And you have them all right there so that you can reference them and know this is what my plan is, but you're not managing it in the inbox.
So the inbox proves to be basically a distraction for us in one sense, because it's like a bottomless pit of stuff. Oh, that's how I feel about
You
email.
can
And
you
no
can hit
matter how
bottom.
much, what?
You can hit bottom, you can get to zero. It's just that not everybody believes that to be true, number one. And number two, they think they have to go through all those hundreds or thousands, and you really don't have to, because depending on how old they are, it's not the best use of your time to look at the old stuff. We actually only go through the most recent 3 months, believe it or not.
Mhm.
That's where all the hot
So
stuff is.
so are you advocating then almost like a system whereby, you have a central task list, emails come in, and you drop them into this is going to be today's work, almost planning your email responses?
No, not the replies. So in our system, processing email, that's what we call it. It's processing email. The actual process is let's say you do get to zero and then more email rolls in the next couple of hours while you're doing a couple more podcasts and you go check your email. So now you see that 30 or 40 maybe rolled in. So if at that moment it's a good time to take 30 minutes and process your email, what you're doing is you're making decisions about how each email is useful to you. So some you can delete right away. Some you can mark as junk. Those are the easy ones. Some you can file in a folder immediately after reading them because it might be just informational. Great, I'll file that in a folder. Or maybe you save an attachment into the hard drive or into the cloud. Those are all just sort of one step, one and done type situations. Others you're going to find are a quick reply. Thanks, Leslie. Look forward to talking with you on the podcast. Reply and then file or delete, something like that. That's still processing email. Then you're going to get to the ones that are more of tasks and follow
Mhm.
ups that you can't do right now. So when it's more involved and it's going to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or, oh, I'd love to reply to Mike or Julie or Bob, but I can't because I have to get this information first. Well, that's a task because you can't get back to that person. You have to do something first. That's a task. If you're not going to do it right now or today, you want to get that on the task list so that you can prioritize it with everything else you have on the task list. So you may get to it today, but you don't want to leave it in the inbox and hope and pray because that's not a great plan. And people's days change so quickly that it could blow up. I mean, even my clients do that sometimes, that when they're practicing this new process and they leave just a couple things in the inbox because they're so sure they're going to get to it today. And then their day changes and they don't. And it becomes a
Yeah.
very slippery slope. And then it starts to scroll off the screen again. So you never want to let
Yeah.
that happen.
So this is like a real kind of, if you're used to kind of, well, let me just tell you where I am, because
Yeah.
this will give you an example. So I I get my email to zero pretty much at least once a week, and I just get through what I can, deal with it once a week. So on Sunday night, we're recording on Monday evening. I got my emails to zero. I am now on 87 unread.
That's a lot.
That's in 20 less than 24 hours, and there's a whole host of other ones here that are actually um, I've read or done something with.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a behavior change, really, in one sense, because like really what I need to do is allocate time in my day to basically go, let's go through these. The ones I can't deal with now, in one sense, you're saying something that I would think opposite. The ones that can be dealt with quickly,
Mm-hmm.
I would probably leave and try and deal with the tricky ones. But what you're saying is task the big chunky ones and then get handle all the simple ones,
It
right?
depends on how simple. What basically, if it's a quick reply, that's not even a task. That's just a reply. So yeah, knock those out. But if you have something that, let's say you have to look up a little bit of information for someone, you maybe a friend or a colleague emails you and says, "Hey, Dean, do you have that number for, Leslie or whoever?" And you just want to get that information and then reply to that email. That's not a big deal. Go ahead and do that. Like in 2 minutes or less, if you can knock out that stuff, that's fine. That's all part of the email process in getting back to zero. The longer stuff, though, you want to get on a task list, because if it takes more than 2 minutes, you don't want to just keep hitting these, one at a time, like baseballs out of a batting machine, because now you're not prioritizing. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
says, oh, well, that's just this or just that. Well, they're all like that. We're all capable. We're highly able. We can do everything. But what we're going to bump up against is the limitations of time. So now we have to prioritize. Is it more or less important to get this thing done? It's going to take me 5 minutes. Or do I have other hotter issues on my plate right now? And that thing that you see that's so simple, you might say, you know what, I'll do that tomorrow. I just don't have time for that today when I see all of my other tasks. I think that's one of the issues is that too many people are flying blind in their day, where they have a sense of what's on their plate, but they really haven't had a chance to see it all in one place in mission control. That's what I call it. So that you really are clear, this is my high priority, with that sense of urgency to say everything else is going to have to wait because I have to get this done. And if some of those things start slipping through the cracks, or maybe it's lost on the desk or it's scrolling off the screen in the email inbox, it's really hard to make those decisions because you're not seeing everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm pretty bad for that actually, because what I will do is I won't put emails into my task list. So I will have in a morning. We've already had a conversation, so I've already improved a little bit. But I would get a piece of paper and go, what do I need to knock out today? But what I wouldn't account for is the things that I've got on my email that I haven't dealt with. I'd just be dealing with what I think are the priorities. And then lo and behold, something flies in, hits me on the other side. And now I'm like, and
Scrambling.
you're right. We don't actually have, this is the home of everything I've got to deal with.
That's why a central digital location, like whatever you use as a task management system or tool, really needs to be able to hold everything, because otherwise you're not comparing all of them. Not that you take, all 50 and compare them, but no, you already, you start picking action dates for each one of these. And it's the action date that drives when these things get done, because they can't be all done today. Yeah.
There's this whole piece about like when you get distracted, it like, let's say, from in my example, I flick to my emails and I spot something else. You know what I mean? I spot something in the email. I have to open it, read it, and then I was just looking for something, but I saw that email and now I've literally wasted 15, 20 minutes because I've got myself. How do you how do you recommend people kind of limit themselves from going down like a rabbit hole of I'm going to email to look for something, oh, I've just seen something else. Like, how do you help people manage that, or is there a way to manage that?
Well, it's going to happen. It happens even to me, where it's easy to get distracted, and you've got a system, and you know you need to be using it. But having the system, I think, is the key because for somebody like me, since I'm, when I get into that email situation, and I've got like 20 emails in the inbox, and now it's time for me to process them back to zero. Because when I get off of this podcast, I'm going to have 20 or 30 or something rolling in, and I'll have the same challenge. Just one at a time, just addressing them one at a time and knowing that each one has a place to go or it's going to get filed or deleted. There's a sense of reliability in that. So you don't have to jump around because they're all going to be taken care of. That's what the next 30 minutes is going to be for, whatever. I think for those people who don't have a system to rely on, it's easy to jump around and too easy to be distracted because you feel like you have to take care of everything right there in the inbox
Mm.
and there's nowhere else for it to go. And you're afraid that it's going to scroll off the screen. So there's a sense of fear a little bit and uncertainty because uncertainty can make you
Yeah.
crazy, uncertainty and unreliability and that lack of confidence that it's going to be safe and that lack of confidence that you've got a grip on everything. So that's where it becomes too easy to be distracted. But that goes away for the most part when you have a system that's working and supporting you and you know that everything will have a place and you can make a decision on all of it that you can feel good about. And then, sometimes if you do get distracted by one email over another, you went to go look for something because you were doing sort of a standard task, then something else catches your eye. Well, in that moment, if you decided, you know what, that thing that just caught my eye, that's way more important than what I was about to do, you're still doing the right thing. You're still prioritizing. But if what you're saying is that other thing that took you away was not as important and now you've just lost 15 minutes, well, that just takes practice. Just, catch yourself doing that. That takes awareness. Catch yourself doing that and go, you know what? That thing I was going to do first was more important. Let me get away from this. Let me pull myself away, get back to what I was doing. I'll come back to this other thing later because it's not as important. It just was interesting.
Mm.
It just
Yeah,
takes
yeah.
practice.
Yeah, I think you said something really interesting there, and it kind of struck a chord with me. Is like being in control,
And certain.
and often with email, it doesn't feel like we're in control. It feels reactive,
Very, very.
um,
Yes, it
and I
is.
like that idea of getting control.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's a great sense of relief. I hear from my clients, that when they get to zero, they're not only enjoying the white space, even though that's short lived, we know. It's that sense of certainty, clarity, control, understanding that nothing was missed. Now they have peace of mind. They know that everything that is a task or a follow up is safe on their task list. They know they've made the right decision about what to go after first versus later, tomorrow, next
Mm.
week, whatever. So yeah, having a place for everything and knowing that you're making those decisions gives them a lot of peace of mind. Also helps them with not working late in the evenings. Like, oh, I got to catch up on email now. So there is a time component where we are protecting time in the day to do this, so they don't have back-to-back meetings all day, and then they go, oh, well, now I've got to do email at night.
Mm.
That's no way to live.
So would you recommend then basically having dedicated time to process email during your day and then kind of only going in it to get what you need?
Not scheduling time like it has to be the same time every day or that it has to be email time. In Tascology, what I do for my clients is we protect time in the morning and in the afternoon, but it's not specific. You have to be able to
Mm.
pivot and say, oh, this is going to be used for email right now, or my afternoon block is going to be used for tasks. Because in our system, tasks are really, really, really small. A little bit different than what most entrepreneurs are doing or are told to do, which is block 4 hours to, start your new book or block 3 hours to go do this marketing thing or whatever, because a lot of people want to do that. And I tell you, in the corporate world, you can't. Now,
Mm.
in the entrepreneurial world, yeah, you have a lot more flexibility to do that, but sometimes people are kicking the can down the road because they are trying to do this thing that's really big, and either they don't know where to start or they're not quite sure where to, what to do next or what have you, and they might kick the can down the road because it's just too big, when really it would behoove them to start small with the very first
Mm.
action step or a next action step. So in the structure that we have, yes, we're doing a methodology of time blocking that is extensive so that everybody knows how many days a week to do it, how many times a day, how long the block should be, and what to do when things go wrong. Plus, we don't do it in a onesie twosie fashion. We do it all at once with no end date. So never, you never have to worry about not having the time you need. But basically, we want to protect time during the day so that you do have time to not only work on the tasks on your task list, but yes, process that email back to zero. So there's a very strong task time connection in the system, because you don't want to try to do this big bucket of things to do and then only have this tiny little thimble of time that never match up. Like, that's never going to work. So we bring that back into alignment so that you are only going after those most important tasks that you can fit into today. That's where the task list comes together with your time management plan so that you know that you've got an alignment there.
Do you think, though, for most people, particularly in corporate, but do you think just generally we have more work than we can actually do?
Always. We always will. Yes, all of us, me included. But that's what forces us in the system to plan things out and really make decisions, because it isn't about, again, whether we're capable or able. We all want to do more. I mean, heck, I want to, do a new book. I want to finish the video series I'm creating. I've got every task on the, on the list that I still have to do. So I get stretched too, but I have to make smart decisions about how the
Mm.
time is spent. And all of this, it forces us to make those decisions. We will always have more to do than the day will allow, but that day really needs to be something where we were sure that how we spent our time was the best possible way, on the best tasks, on the ones that make the most impact, or the ones that are the most urgent. Well, not that we want to be on fire every day, but that you
Mm.
made those right decisions. And at the same time, nothing got missed. That's key.
Yeah,
So, yeah, you might feel great that you did this, but you forgot five other things. That's going to give you some stress.
yeah. I often find I get email blind. That there's things that have turned up in my inbox, and I'm like, I never saw that before.
Oh,
And I don't know whether you've seen this before. That like it's like emails that you didn't even. I've got loads of different filters on to try and get rid of like uh, outreach, cold outreach, that kind of stuff to kind of park it. And I
hmm.
still find that there's emails that aren't cold outreach that end up going into these folders that
Oh,
never get found.
hmm.
So I don't know whether it's me not paying attention more. Maybe that's part of what it, maybe I'm having a revelation here. Maybe the fact that I'm not actually processing email properly, like taking the time to go, right, what have I got?
Well, that's the question. How many filters do you have on? So you're using a
Oh
form
my
of email
God.
rules.
Oh my God. Probably about 20.
Okay. So what's happening is that you're filtering them off and they're going into email folders designated for that particular filter or rule, right?
Mm.
So when you go to those folders, is that where you see the surprises? Like, oh, I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
know
like
about that.
rogues. It's like rogue. Like
Mm-hmm. Rogue
I have
emails.
one that filters like unsubscribe. If an email says unsubscribe in it, it will put it in a folder. I've got some that are from particular domains that go into another folder. And all it takes is a client to message me and say, or email me and say, hey, we want to add an unsubscribe or something like that. And it just goes, poof.
Yes, and that will happen, right, because of those filters. So as long as you're looking at the emails in those other folders, and yes, you will end up with a surprise once in a while. As long as you look at them, I don't really recommend using rules and filters, but I understand why you did. Absolutely. I think the key is learning how to process email so that you're more in charge and in control of deciding what stays and what goes,
Mm.
and for what stays, where it goes and how to handle it, because it could be a task that you would get onto the task list. Just becoming really fast in your decision making and Because what's happening is it's coming out of your inbox, yes, but now it's in a folder. And so you still have to spend the same amount of time
Yeah, yeah.
to review those. But it's nice that you've got them in a category of this is usually an unsubscribe. Now your task, pardon the pun, is to see did something land here by mistake?
Mm.
And that will, yeah, that will take just as much time as if you saw it in the inbox. You're
So,
just seeing it later.
so you're talking about a task system, and often, it depends on which email services you're using. But like for an example, I'm all Google.
Hmm.
So the
So
tasks in Google Tasks aren't very good.
it's horrible. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud too fast? You could try GQs. I've looked at it. I've not used it extensively or at all, but I've at least studied it because I am a Microsoft gal. But I also use Todoist with clients. If they have Apple Mail or Google, Todoist is another good one. I'm not going to poo-poo any of them. I mean, it could be
Mm.
Asana, Trello, Monday, Notion, like there's 100 of them out there. I haven't tried them all. So when people bring them to me one at a time, then I, can see them a little bit more in depth, how they're being used. And that's really the key is how that person is using it, which they might not be doing it right. And I can guarantee almost with 100% certainty that they're not. And this is why this methodology was created because almost no one out there, or no one I've ever seen as a productivity expert or guru, has defined a task for you people out there. And that's what's really unfortunate is that
Nobody's
professionals out there,
defined a task.
how you define a task. When I watch the demos, Dean, when I see something on Asana or Trello, or I don't know, I won't pick them out because I don't know which one it was that I saw. But the demo person who's saying, this is what you can do in our system, and here's all the bells and whistles, and you can add a task here. And I go, dude, that's a project. That's huge, and
Yeah.
I feel bad for all the professionals out there who are following what they're saying because they're treating everything as a project. And that's not how you're going to get progress in your workday.
Mm.
No, no. Task management is going to give you progress in your workday. And so in our system, a task is defined by quite a few different elements. There are five. And one of them is about how long it's going to take to do a task. And I'm not saying this is how long this whole thing is going to take. No, I'm teaching people how to break it down into the very first or next action step to get something started. So it could be a project, it could be a multi step task. But the only thing you have to worry about right now is what am I going to do first to get this going? Or what am I going to do next to keep it going?
Mm.
And those need to be between 30 seconds and 30 minutes long. And generally they are a quick phone call, an email, start a meeting agenda, even write the beginning of that article, maybe write an outline for something. Well, there's always something small that you can do first. And I'm not trying to get people to be underachievers here. What I'm saying is that too many people hesitate and procrastinate because what they've written on that legal pad or what they've typed into that to-do app is way too big. So
Yeah.
break it down,
Now,
break it down, break it down.
now you're talking my language. I am terrible at doing this. Like, I'll write a task and it'll be like, well, I've just done this, my own speaker bio, redo my own speaker bio one pager. But of course, I've got to get the design done. I've got to get the copy rewritten, the photography sorted. That's a 4 hour job, actually.
Right.
But in my task list, it was speaker bio.
Yes. So what would you literally do first? Let's pretend that we weren't on this podcast today and you had the day before you, like it's not the end of the day, but it's the beginning of the day, and you have nothing else to do for this whole day. What would you literally do first to get that started?
So, well, I'd look at, okay, I've got to get photos, this, that. So now you're saying this, I'd be like breaking this down into, right, I've got to get these photos. I've got to go through those photos, pick the ones that are going to go on, pick the quotes that are going to go on, pick the brand logos I'm going to put on this thing.
Right. But you
But
have to
what I
start
did is just
somewhere.
made this homogenous thing.
Right. So what you would do in your task, in whatever system you're using, you could do that brain dump in the notes section of the task and then step back and look at it and go, okay, something's got to go first. What's it going to be? And that's what comes up on the task line. That's your first step. You might decide and go, no, the photos I'm going to do later. I'm going to pick the logos first, or I'm going to go call this person and check on that, or I'm going to go review my old bio and I'm going to start there. I'm going to review it and revise it. Then I'll do the photos. Whatever you decide, pick one step. That's your task. That's it.
Mm.
Then usually it's going to fall between 30 seconds and 30 minutes long. Even if it doesn't, you're just going to get started. And then you can say, okay, well, if I have more time, great. I might finish it up in 45 minutes instead. That's great. I wouldn't stop anybody from doing that. But if you had to dash off to your next meeting, your next call, your next podcast or lunch or whatever it is, you just say, okay, I'm going to pick this up again tomorrow. Here's where I left off. That's my new action date.
And do you know what? Um, that's so obvious, but yet
Right.
nobody's thinking. Well, I'm not thinking that way.
Most people don't. They always state it as the final step or the outcome.
Mm.
Speaker bio, like redo the whole thing. That's the outcome. That's the last step. That's the
Yeah.
result. But we can't name tasks like the result because there's a lot of steps to get there. You have to pick which one you're going to start with. So too many
Mm.
people do fall into that trap. They're envisioning the final,
Mm.
the final everything, but that's not how you get progress. That's not going to work. But that is the
So
goal.
what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Because I'd be one of those people in the camps of saying, Leslie, this is brilliant, but I don't have the time. You probably hear this all the time. I don't have the time to go through this process because I've got all this stuff. Where's the first? Where's the first step to going from? I don't want to be in that world, that crazy world anymore. And
The
and,
first
and I'm assuming you're saying contact me, of course, but
No, no, not necessarily. I mean, sure, I'm always here for help, but what you really want to do is remember that right now your time is being wasted in
Mhm.
so many different ways. It's like it's being lost. And you really want to understand the benefit of regaining that time and streamlining this process. So it's not, this is what's so great about learning a new productivity method like this, is that while you're instituting it and implementing the methodology, you're actually getting things done. You're actually streamlining as you go. And it's not like, getting sales training where you're going to get pulled out of your day and away from your email and away from everything you need to do. And you go do the sales training and then you come back and you're like, oh crap, I've got 100 new email in my inbox. A lot of training is like that, where you're going to get pulled out of your day. Not so with productivity, not with this system. So you're actually working with your own tasks as you build the system. And remember, they have to go somewhere, whether you're putting them in your brain, putting them on paper, or putting them in some other to-do app. What you're missing is the methodology for the technology. So you're typing them and writing them somewhere. What we're just doing is taking that time and putting it all into one location, so it's going to be worth your while to start building that one location, mission control with everything. And
Mm.
then you're also at the same time, you're kind of getting organized a little bit because you're going to find things on your desk that you can throw away or recycle, something you could file or give to somebody else. That's the physical. You want to start with separating the reference information from the active information. So, physical information, that's your first step there. And then when you get all your tasks together, post it notes, legal pads, planners, spiral notebooks, all that, you're going to use that and start building your task list and then start letting those things go. Tear off the pages and throw them away. Erase the whiteboard. Figure out what the first step is. Get rid of that Excel spreadsheet or that Word document, whatever it is. And start consolidating, because it's in using the system that it maintains itself, just using it
Mm.
because it is the one place. So it shouldn't have any maintenance, unless you're planning too much for one day. So, but that's how you get started there. And then, that has to be first before you ever get to email, because email is going to be the same thing. You got to separate your reference from your action. But you have to have a working task list first to do that.
Mhm.
So really can't attempt email until you have that task list set up and ready to go. But that would be the first
And
place I'd start.
and so folders wise, what
Mhm.
you're saying is don't filter. Use your processing time to review and then put them in folders based on, like, this is reference. Say I need to look back at this, so I've filed everything there that I need to look back on. Everything I need to respond to is in another one. That's
Not
what
even
you're
that.
basically saying.
Not even that. No, those stay in the inbox. Actually, the only way that we use folders in email right now is that it's purely reference. You've seen it, you've made a decision about it, and you know it's going to be useful to you in the future. That's what goes in an email folder. Nothing else should ever be in our system in an email folder, not reading or reply or to do or anything like that. I teach my clients how to make those decisions right there on the spot in the email inbox, and or those tasks and follow-ups, they go on the task list. I tell them what to do with reading, and as they're processing email, that's when they're replying. If they can't do it in a couple of minutes, it goes on the task list. Now if it's a lengthy reply and you've really got to put some thought into it, that's definitely a task, because if you don't have time to do that right now and it's not the hottest thing on your plate, it shouldn't be
Mm.
done yet. You might have other things to do. So no folders for reading or response or to do or anything like that. It really is that email processing that gets you back to zero, and then you're just making fast decisions, or it gets filed or deleted.
Takes some discipline though to not just dive in and start solving the emails that take
It
longer,
does.
doesn't it?
It does, but you also need the system behind you, supporting you.
Mm.
And I think this is what's hard for people to wrap their brain around right now. Even hearing me say this and having us talk about it, it's probably blowing people's minds, because they're like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get started. It's understanding that it's the methodology that you've never been
Mm.
exposed to before, and this new method of thinking and executing, because without that, it can be a little dicey. Email is such a magnet. It really does suck up everybody's time. And if they don't have systems around them, whether for reference or action, everything seems a little shaky. And it just makes me sad, because I know that people are staying up late just to get through their email.
Yeah, it's
And it
nuts.
shouldn't have to be that
And
way,
it's even worse when people love to CC you in things that you don't even need to be CC'd in.
right? You just need to tell them, unless it's going to be insulting, but there's got to be, if there's a chance to explain it to somebody and say it, tactfully and politely and with reason, and, give them the why behind it, you could probably get off some of those lists. If it's a situation where it would totally insult somebody, I mean, it's hard to get away from that. And those would be the things that you could probably filter with some degree of safety and certainty. But I'm not really a huge fan of filters, just because it's taking it out of your vision, and it's going to
Mm.
surprise you later. And that happens to so many of my clients. And we dismantle every rule, every last one of them. And I put them back in the driver's seat. I would do
Wow,
that for you too.
that's scary. That's scary. Just getting rid of the filters. But I suppose
Mm.
you're right. I mean, I said it at the beginning here. There are emails that just appear that I didn't know existed that I've had for a few days, and I'm like, oh my god, why did I not see that?
If you can get faster at just, doing the same kind of review really quickly while they're in the inbox, and just hit that delete key a lot faster, or get things filed a lot faster, like, yep, saw it, don't need to do anything, let's get that out of here. Usually it's file or delete at that point. It's really, just having you go quickly through that, because you're looking at them while they're in the folders anyway. I know you're doing it later, but, now later it could be six of one, half dozen of the other. And you really want to see those gold nuggets way before it's too late, you
Hmm.
know, when it slaps you in the face. And I wouldn't want that for anybody.
Leslie, we could go on for hours here because this is
Oh,
like
right.
this is like something I know I struggle with, and I know a lot of people struggle with trying to deal with this, and they probably have experienced the frustration of their clients struggling with this as well, and going, um, "Why are they not responding to my emails? Why?" It's because we're all drowning in it.
Yes. Yes. And so we need a method so that people are not drowning anymore. And I can help, but, get started with that task list first, because that's going to be the key.
Yeah, yeah. This is
Yeah.
brilliant. I'm gonna start having a go at this. I'll let
Okay.
you know how I get on.
Please do.
But
Yeah. Get rid of those.
Leslie, if people have got questions about this or want to get a hold of your ebooks or anything like that, where's the best place for them to go?
Productiveday.com is our website. They could also reach out to me if they have questions. Leslie at productiveday.com. It's Leslie. We don't have ebooks anymore. That's just what I did back in 2008. We don't actually
Okay.
sell the products anymore, but we do have a new program rolling out called the Productive Day Powerhouse. So it's a 90-day program. We'll be announcing this fall or in January. We're still sort of putting some final touches on things. But there's a couple of free resources on the website. So in the meantime, before we get started with the Powerhouse program, you can come to the Productive Day website, and on the homepage we have a really great quiz that you will love to fill out, because it's very short. It's only about 8 or 10 questions. And it's called What's Your Number One Productivity Blind Spot? So on the other side of this quiz, you're going to find out if you're a giver, a marker, a jumper, or a detective. And you'll get your own unique results report. And then a few days later, you're going to get another deep dive report that specifically talks about that one product, that number one productivity blind spot that you are. And it will help you understand what's really going on in your workday because of it and how to fix it too. So that's one thing, is that quiz is really good. The other one is the Productive Day Smart Steps. And that is our 52-week audio series of 2 to 4 minute audios that I've done. So every week you'll get one in your inbox. These are tips and strategies straight from Tascology. And those will really help you get familiar with the system and help you save time and understand where you're headed with some of these strategies that you can put into motion right away. And to be clear, Tascology isn't, a bunch of random disconnected tips, tricks, tools, tactics, shortcuts, apps, or hacks. It is a complete A to Z step-by-step system. So everything belongs together. It interconnects, and it all complements each component, because it ties together, and each component supports the other. So everything's going to make sense when you've got all the components working together. And those smart steps will help you see how it all ties and fits together. I
I
think we
love
also
that
have
idea.
a great report too. Pardon me?
I love that audio series idea because,
It's
like,
fun to
I,
create.
I can listen to it whilst I'm driving in the car.
Mm-hmm. It's only 2 to 4 minutes, so they're not very long. Yeah. So once a week, and then you'll be with us for a year. And we have one other special report on the homepage. I think it's called The 7 Surprising Secrets to Saving Time. So there's time and productivity hiding in your workday, and this report will highlight where that is. So
That's
those are the
awesome.
free resources. I welcome you all to take advantage of those.
And they're all on productiveday.com.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, that's one hell of a domain, by the way. That's an
Oh,
awesome domain name.
yeah. 20 years ago, or maybe almost 15 years ago, a friend of mine helped me find that. And I thought, yep, that's brilliant. I'll take it. And,
Yeah,
it,
it's
it
like
works.
I have a little bit of an addiction to buying domain names. So when I see a good one, I'm like, that's a good domain name.
A productive day, as in have one.
Yeah. Leslie, it's been great to have you on. I'd love to have you back and talk about some more of this stuff in the future because I think it's such a, especially business owners, it's like there's always more to do. There's always more ideas
I
and
agree.
kind of managing all of that so actually something happens
Mm-hmm.
because it's really easy to be busy and be a busy fool basically.
And not productive, and then not feel satisfied by the end of the day. I want everyone to feel satisfied that they put in good time and effort and got results on the other end. And then they can feel
Yeah.
accomplished at the end of the day. Well, I agree. I'd love to come back. There's so much more to talk about. And thank you, Dean, for having me on the show today. It was really fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So, thank you everybody for listening. We will have Leslie back because I think there's loads we could talk about here. We want to be productive. We've got to get the most out of our day. Don't forget to check out those resources on productiveday.com. I'm going there. I want that audio series. But Leslie, thanks again for coming on, and I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to having you back soon.
Thank you so much, Dean.